I chatted with the Justice Secretary, Robert Buckland, and I pointed out to him that the Prime Minister didn't want us to go to amber countries for our holidays, but if that was so, why is it legal to go to the likes of France, Spain and Greece, especially since the PM is saying it's rather dangerous and bad to do so?
Well, it's guidance. It's all guidance. And I think it all stems from the green country list that we issued, which made it very clear that you could go on holiday to those named and listed countries, some like Portugal, some perhaps a little bit more esoteric like the Falkland Islands. But it was very clear that those were the countries that you could go on holiday to.
But when you say could, what are you going to say to the hundreds of thousands of people? We've just spoken to Michael O'Leary of Ryanair. He says hundreds of thousands of people are booking for amber list countries now. What are you going to say to them? That they're, letting Britain down, that it's unethical for them to be buying tickets to Italy and Spain and France?
Well, the advice is clear. Don't go on holiday to amber or red list.
But people are buying tickets there now. So what are you going to say to them? That they are, broadly doing something that's immoral?
Well, the message is very clear to them. Look, go on holiday to a green list country, but if you're thinking about an amber list country, then it's probably best not to do that now. Enjoy a holiday in the UK. Remember that the rules relating to amber, green and red are different according to the quarantine restrictions. And that is why there is that gradation. And it's a sensible one. But, I think the message is loud and clear. Green countries, yes, enjoy yourselves. Red and amber, no.
And so, to be absolutely clear, you are, a party that supposedly believes in liberty. You're basically saying to people, you've made a mistake.
Well, we're saying, look, there's a good reason why we've put this guidance and the quarantine rules in place. Let's not forget they are rules with financial penalties if they're breached, because we are working as hard as we can to contain the virus and to make sure that there isn't inadvertent transmission from third countries. That's why we're doing it. The public absolutely accept that. And I think it's, if it wasn't clear before, it certainly is now that green means go if you want to go on holiday, otherwise it's a no.
Now, there's obviously a lot of anxiety about this Indian variant and fear that it's going to set back the unlocking. I think Anushka just wants to share a little bit of data with us.
This is looking at the timeline of Indian variants in the UK. So, look, this dark pink area over here is B16712, the more worrying variant growing as a proportion of cases. Now, a related India variant was actually placed under investigation here on the 1st of April. A day later, Pakistan and Bangladesh were added to the red list, but as we know, India was not. At that point, the Indian variants were barely here, and the Prime Minister was still planning a visit to India. He later scaled that down and then cancelled it completely on the 19th of April, by which point you can see the pink is starting to grow. The variants have arrived. Now, on the same day, they announced that India would be added to the red list, but it was still another 4 days until the policy was actually implemented, by which point the pink has grown further and is on an upwards trajectory because by then it was already spreading here. Robert.
I mean, it was a mistake, wasn't it, not to put India on the red list when Bangladesh and Pakistan went on the red list?
No, it wasn't. The tests that we were applying were the number of people testing positive coming into the country. Sadly, with regard to Bangladesh and Pakistan, those numbers were rising, which is why we took that decision. India was in a different position.
It was different for 1 day. It was rising. No. The data is clear, Robert. The data is absolutely clear that there was in fact, India was at the top for much of that 2-week period, and yet it wasn't put on the red list.
Yeah, but the point is that with regard to the particular variant, we started work on establishing whether it was a variant of concern, which, as you know, is the way in which we define the particular strain, if it's a real threat. That final decision as to whether or not it was a variant of concern.
Pakistan and Bangladesh were put on the red list because of the numbers of people coming in who are infected and because of prevalence of the virus, not a variant, of the virus in those countries. No. India should have been put on the red list on that basis 2 weeks earlier. There's no question about it.
Well, I'm sorry. The key test is whether or not the particular variant was a variant of concern. That decision wasn't made until the 7th of May. So I'm sorry, I do take issue with this sort of rather confident confident approach being taken about timelines and suggestions that somehow we were behind the curve.
So did it come in by magic? Did it come in people in planes?
No, look, Robert, we followed the evidence on positive tests. We then made inquiries about this particular variant. The decision wasn't made until the 7th of May, and I don't think it is, frankly, right to sort of come here with a counsel of perfection and tell us that somehow, because we were, if there was a day or two out, that somehow this has opened the door to
It wasn't
an
a day or two out, it was
exponential
at least a
increase.
fortnight out, and actually talking to some of your scientists, one of the things they say is that this is another example of you just not moving fast enough.
Well,
And we're going to get Dominic Cummings talking about all of this next week to MPs. How's the government going to cope with that?
Well, look, we've already announced an independent inquiry, a public inquiry that will be held. That was going to be the moment where we're going to be able to look back calmly and coolly and look in the open at all the evidence and work out what went right, what didn't go so right, and how we can learn from this experience. That's going to be the time for reflection, not in the heat of the fight that we are still conducting against this virus.
Now, in terms of your department and associated things, lots of important, some would say controversial things going on. Your judicial review bill, which has not yet been published, a lot of interest in whether the effect of it would have been to have made it impossible for the Supreme Court to tell Boris Johnson that he was wrong to close down Parliament.
What I want to do is to try and do something for the long term. I've described it as constitutional plumbing, and I take my role as guardian of the judiciary very, very seriously. And I don't want to see our judges, particularly those at the Supreme Court, being sort of drawn in to a political arena increasingly in a way that, frankly, they wouldn't want to be, and I think would be bad for the balance of the Constitution.
So it does sound as though you would tie the Supreme Court's hands in circumstances like this.
Well, no, what I want to do is actually deepen and widen the range of remedies that are available by way of judicial review. Now, that sounds actually like I want to expand.
I certainly don't understand that.
But at the moment, the court has powers. It can either take a sledgehammer and say, look, what you've done is unlawful, therefore it has no effect.
Which is what happened in that case.
Yes, it has no effect, and therefore you have to remedy everything. Or it says, well, like in the case involving Matt Hancock and the Health Department, well, we make a declaration it was unlawful, but the stable door is open and the horse is bolted. I want to actually increase the range of remedies here so the court can do other types of things like suspending orders, looking at orders prospectively, and trying to actually make judicial review an even more subtle tool.
Maybe. It does sound as though what you are saying is that you wish the Supreme Court hadn't done that and you're going to stop them next time.
Well, it's not as crude as that, Robert. I operate, I hope, with subtlety. And as a Conservative Lord Chancellor, I believe in incremental change. That's what I'm going to be proposing in the measures to come.
Robert Buckland, very good to see you.
Thank you, Robert.